This is JobLine, your Long Island career source with Scott Possessor.
Welcome to JobLine, Long Island's only program devoted to career opportunities and workplace issues. I'm Scott Possessor. Okay, so it appears that the economy has turned the corner and the outlook for the future has improved. Still, most believe the recovery will take quite a long time, and many job hunters are still looking for ways to survive these very tough times, while many business owners are still looking for solutions to their cash flow problems. Well, take heart. Today we're joined by an author who has just published a book called Survive and Prosper. In the book, business consultant and author Jack Leahy spells out 50 basic concepts that successful companies have employed in good and bad times. Jack has been gracious enough to identify the most relevant components of his book for JobLine's audience of job hunters and small businesses. Well, welcome, Jack, to JobLine.
Thank you, Scott.
Pleasure to have you here. Tell me a little bit about yourself and the genesis of the book.
Well, Scott, I've been in banking for 33 years. I worked at the Chase Manhattan Bank for 25. I ran the middle market business. And then after that, I went and ran Citigroup's private banking business on Long Island in upstate New York. During that time period, I was able to deal with thousands of CEOs and help them as they were looking to grow their businesses. So I decided that when I retired from Citigroup that I would write this book, essentially taking the concepts that I learned dealing with those business owners and put it into the book. So now business owners and managers that are looking to grow their business can use these concepts to get through these tough times.
And as you and I talked in preparation for today's show, you culled through the 50 concepts and picked out a 14 or so that we think are relevant to today's audience, and some of them will definitely give the viewers something to think about as it relates to both their job campaign and their businesses.
Absolutely. And just like a business owner who's looking to grow his business, somebody that's out of a job is looking to grow and get a new job. So a lot of those concepts that I have, the 50, are very relevant to help people try to find their jobs using the same concepts.
Okay, and with no further ado,
right,
we're going to go right to them. The first one is know where you are now and where you want to go.
Absolutely. It starts with you doing an assessment of yourself. Why am I out of a job? And what are my skills? And therefore, how do I take those and figure out where do I want to be 1 year from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now? But it's really dealing with a self-assessment, and that's the way I deal with it in my book. I come up with you assessing yourself against those 50 concepts. Well, I think that that's what you need to do, is to make an objective assessment of your current situation, and also your financials, and how much money do you have, and how long is it going to take before you run through that to determine where you want to be in the future and how quickly you need a job.
And the mistake there being that a lot of people plunge right into that resume, even before they do the self-assessment, and I think that's where the mistake is.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Okay, move on to number 2, which is develop realistic objectives.
Absolutely. Once you understand yourself and where you want to go, I'm a big believer that you need to put those things down on paper. So you need to have objectives that are both financial and non-financial, and also short and long term. That right now there are roughly 15 million people that are out of work, and 5 million of those people have been out of work greater than 6 months. And they show that those 5 million people have a much harder time trying to find a job. So conceivably, you set up those objectives. When do I want to get a job? Is it within the next 6 months, or is it a year or 2 years out? And then after you get those objectives, you need to develop specific strategies to accomplish those objectives. And after you have those strategies, you need tactics. So strategies are how you're going to do it, and then tactics are what you're going to do to accomplish those objectives. Getting a job within 6 months, in what kind of business. But the way I look at it is you need to write it down on a piece of paper so that you have it, so you can focus on it, as opposed to leaving it in your head.
Okay, now the next bullet here is prepare strategies and tactics, which is basically what you just said.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to a corporate personal identity as your reputation. Build it carefully.
Yes, well, you think about corporations, I mean, they have identities. You think of Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola, Citigroup, Chase Manhattan Bank, they have a corporate identity. Well, you as a person, you need a corporate identity also. Who are you? Why would somebody want to hire you? And you need to think about that. You need to include it in your resume, as you mentioned, but it's important to understand yourself and know how people perceive you and how you're going to use that to help accomplish and get a new job.
Okay, now you have something here that's going to confuse, but also enlighten, which is selling is not selling.
I think that that is something that's almost key in finding a new job or growing a business. That when I look at selling, it's really about building a relationship, understanding a need, and then delivering a benefit. So as somebody that's looking to generate a job or obtain a new job, or somebody that's looking to grow their business, they really have to focus on those three things. How many times do you see people come in and they're just constantly telling how great they are, and as opposed to listening to what the client really wants and then try to figure out how do you bring a benefit to that.
Great.
So if you do that, build a relationship, understand the need, and deliver a benefit, I believe you never have to sell a day in your life.
Terrific advice. Okay, and how about we'll finish with persistence drives performance.
Absolutely. I was an engineer before I became a banker at the Grumman Corporation, put men on the moon. And I saw engines blowing up as we were designing the ascent and descent engines for the lunar module. And I saw us continually working to try to get those engines to work to put a man on the moon by 1969. Well, I saw that persistence really got us to the point where we were able to put a man on the moon and build those engines. So I'm a strong believer that if you persist at trying to find a job when you're out of a job, you will achieve a job. But if you lay back and just let things happen, that you will have a much harder time get a job. So I'm a strong believer that you really have to persist at trying to find a job, and if you do that well and follow some of the things that we talked about before, that you will obtain a job and perform well in that job.
Okay, sounds great. We're going to take a short break here. We're speaking with Jack Leahy, the author of Survive and Prosper. In it, he spells out 50 basic concepts that successful companies have employed in good times and bad. We'll be right back after this short message. Welcome back to JobLine at News 12 Long Island. We're continuing our discussion with Jack Leahy. Jack has written a book called Survive and Prosper, where he spells out 50 basic concepts that successful companies have employed in good and bad times. Jack, welcome back.
Thank you, Scott.
Time flying by. We want to get to all the points that you put together for us.
Okay.
Let's move to the next one, which is great for both job hunters and businesses. Foster communication, critical to success.
Yes. I think that communication is probably one of the most important things in life. Just communicating back and forth like this or with your wife, but it's also important as you're out trying to find a job. How can you communicate to that potential company that's looking to hire you? But one of the key successes in communications, I believe, is listening. You've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. So as you're in communicating to try to find out a job, make sure you're listening and then just responding back. So it's a two-way street, and just focus on listening and responding.
Okay. Evaluate your model.
Well, in business, you have a business model, and as you're out trying to sell yourself, you also have a model. So it's important for you to assess as you go through the process how well you're doing, how well you're coming across. There's a concept that I've used, which is PDCA, plan, do, check, and act. So when you plan to go in for an interview, you do that interview, and when you come back, check it. Check that business model. How did you come across? What went well? What didn't go so well? So the next time you can go out and act in a more effective way.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to combine a few bullets because they're very similar. The next one is get organized, and then after that, you utilize your time effectively, and then also plan meetings. So put them all together for me.
Well, essentially, you've got to use your time effectively. You need to try to get a job within 1 month or 6 months. So therefore, you've got a whole bunch of things that you want to do. So organize yourself, write things down, 1, 2, 3, 4, and when you want to accomplish them. And then try to figure out how do you focus on those things effectively. And then as you're going to a meeting, plan that meeting before. What I say when I'm running a business meeting, or if I want to meet with somebody, I use a PAL, P-A-L. Essentially, purpose. You should have a purpose for every meeting, an agenda for every meeting, and a limit for every meeting. So plan that out when you're going in, study and organize yourself before you go in, and then use those plan, purpose, agenda, and limit to focus your time and use your time effectively.
Okay, fortunately, PAL, I got that one. Okay, take advantage of opportunities in tough conditions, and there are some.
Well, when you're in business and you're going through tough times, you always have to keep your eyes open. There are companies conceivably that are in trouble that you might have an opportunity to buy, or that there are people that are that lose their jobs in your competitors, so you have an opportunity to hire those. Well, the same thing as you're looking to try to find a job, you have your objectives, short-term and long-term, financial, non-financial, but things happen during that time. Opportunities arise, maybe not against those objectives, but something on the side. So consider them, explore those opportunities. Don't shut anything down as you're trying to look for a job.
Okay. And then rely on advisors. Outside perspectives are invaluable, and also be positive.
Well, advisors, if you think about companies, most have, public companies all have board of directors, and private companies have advisors also that provide advice to them. Well, as you're trying to find a job, you need to rely on advisors. You need advice. You're in a difficult situation. Many times it's very emotional, and you need a third party to discuss things with you. People that are accountants or in other areas of business. So rely on them, ask them questions, run things by them, and in many cases they are influential in the community. Ask them to help you get introductions, because networking is really important to finding a job.
Okay, we only have a few seconds left, but just finish up with be positive.
Well, I think that it's really important to be positive. It's easy to be negative and it's easy to be positive, but it's more important if you are positive. So these are tough times. If you keep your mind focused on getting a job, you probably will. It's just like you get up, and I play a lot of golf, and I look at the water, and do I say, geez, I think I'm going to hit it in the water? You hit it in the water. I say, geez, I'm going to hit it on the green. It goes on the green.
Right.
So it's just as easy to think positive as opposed to negative. If you think positive, you will have a higher probability of getting that job.
Okay, Survive and Prosper, available in bookstores soon, and also at jackleahy.com. Up next, we'll speak with a law enforcement officer from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation when JobLine on News 12 Long Island returns. Thanks to my guests and you at home for watching JobLine. Until next time, I'm Scott Possessor. Happy hunting.